Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of our How They Lead podcast from Westpeak. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm Matt Bennett. I am the president of Westpeak US, and it's my pleasure to welcome here today my guest, Jenna Eichberg, who is the Chief People Officer at AlertMedia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for having me join today.
Thank you for being here. So a bit of background for the listeners. So we met in Austin probably about a month and a half or so ago. We were going to meet for about 30 minutes or so, I think. We ended up talking about the future of work and the future of leadership for an hour and a half. We nearly ran into the line dancing, which was happening in the office there as well. And we just thought it'd be a great idea to continue the conversation because we were both so passionate about the topic of the future of work and of leadership that encouraged you to want to come on the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you.
In our How They Lead podcast, we like to talk through the individual's background and their experiences and their skills, but also about their leadership ethos and about their leadership in practice. We also talk through the times when it didn't go as well, so that kind of messy middle of things that we've learned as a leader and how our listeners can learn from some of those experiences as well. And then we'll dive into the future of leadership as well towards the end. So tell us a bit about you and your role, first of all, Jenna, and your time at AlertMedia.
Sure. So I'm Jenna Eichberg. I'm the Chief People Officer at AlertMedia, and I've been here for about 2 years. And what I've loved most about this organization is not just about what we do, but how we do it. For those of you who don't know AlertMedia, we are a company that helps organizations keep people safe in those moments of crisis like natural disasters, whether there's hurricanes or earthquakes impacting your offices, your remote employees, or those who are on vacation. Our technology enables all the different customers across the world to be able to understand how are those different threats and risks impacting their people, and how can they immediately communicate with them to confirm they're safe and help support them in those crisis situations. And when I talk about how we do it, well, I am a user of our product and I'm super passionate about what we do. What I'm most passionate about is the employees who do it with us, and the way in which our culture and the talent that we have really comes to life every day to live our mission of helping keep people safe.
Amazing. Thank you. So a couple of things that I want to dive into during the podcast at some point. But the first one is that we're recording this on July the 7th in the US. You are in Austin. I'm in Los Angeles. And this is directly after the floods that happened in Texas this weekend. And I know that the technology that you guys have has definitely helped you over the weekend in exactly the same circumstances that you provide for with your clients. So definitely keen to dive into that. Also, you talked then about AlertMedia in Austin, and you guys won the Best Company to Work for in Austin award recently. We are definitely past the phase of kombucha and beanbags as being the way that organizations win those type of awards. So keen to dive into that into the podcast as well. But let's talk to you first, Jenna. So tell me a bit about your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I always describe myself as a bit of a unicorn in the HR world. Some people fall into their careers in HR, and I had this unique benefit of really knowing as I went into college that this was really my path. And now I'm a person of experimentation. I tested that out and worked a lot throughout my undergrad while I studied in HR and business. And one of the things that was really telling to me is I really love being a great business person. But the dimension of businesses that I'm most passionate about, that I'm most excited about every day, is really how organizations think about talent at every stage of its growth, and how do you really invest and grow people to help them contribute value to business? Because I really see that as a competitive advantage. And when I think about, my pathways, it's not linear. For me, it's about how do I get the different types of experiences across different industries throughout my career that have helped me grow, not just as an HR leader, but most importantly, as a true leader in organizations. And I wanted to learn from the best early on. I started my career out of grad school at General Mills in the manufacturing sites. And I always say, that's where I learned, that's where I got my badge. That's where I learned all the different dimensions of HR when you have to wear all these different hats to run a business. And there's not always one answer, and there's not a lot of resources around you in the manufacturing sites to help you solve every problem. You are the person to solve that problem. You're the person who has to find all the resources and understand and ask a lot of questions. And I think that what was most exciting for me kind of growing up early on in manufacturing was you get exposure to so many diverse groups of people in the workplace and challenges that you don't always encounter. Obviously, when you're sitting in a finance industry in a big downtown office, or now in a tech office in downtown Austin, like I am today. Um, but one of the things that I think I learned the most through my manufacturing experiences was the idea that you're only as good as the people around you, and that you don't just lead from the top, you actually lead bottoms up. Like I remember sitting on third shift with my in the manufacturing sites because I needed to go earn trust and credibility with my workforce. I was in a 24/7 operation. I didn't want to just be that HR person who you get random emails from when you choose to read your emails and you're in the
Yeah.
manufacturing. I wanted to be a human. I wanted to be a person that people felt like they could trust, that had their best interests in mind. And I think I grew a lot, not just as a person through those experiences, but also really understanding how deep trusted relationships are really at the foundation of every great culture. And I've really carried that through as, I made transitions out of manufacturing and I went into the financial industry in downtown Los Angeles. And what was most exciting for me there was I did a lot of transformational work. I was driving immense change. And when I think about that thread, right, going from manufacturing to finance, everyone's like, oh, that's so different.
Yeah,
But
completely.
that consistent thread is that people, process, technology, all those pieces matter, right?
Mm.
And if you're really intentional about building deep trusted relationships, being curious about understanding what work people are doing and helping to be part of the solution, be part of the problem solving. Don't just be the HR person in the room, but really be the partner in the room who's helping you solve it, even if you don't have that expertise. And then taking that forward, I made that decision to pivot from kind of large businesses that I grew up in to the startup tech world about, I don't know, it's been about 3.5 years.
Mm.
And I always knew I wanted to be a builder. I love building and transforming things, and not just because you can, but because it makes us better. And it actually creates some of the greatest development experiences for people to
Mm.
grow and for
Mm.
me to grow. And each of those different kind of pivots as I've gone from, larger corporations to privately held organizations that felt really different as well, to now kind of private equity space. Um, it's been a really important experience for me to think about how have I been really intentional to not just grow my HR career, but broaden my exposure and my mindset to different types of people, to different business
Mm.
strategies, to different financial strategies that help business scale and grow over time.
Mm. Amazing. So you talked there a lot about growth and a lot about your development and the challenges that you've seen across those different industries and organizations. When was the first opportunity that you felt that you actually had to lead? A lot of us are privileged that we are able to lead before the title says so. When did you first feel that you were really able to lead, whether you had that heading in your job title or not?
Sure. There's so many different experiences where I could say, hey, that was my first time leading. But I think leadership for me started when I was really young. I think about each of the different experiences I had in my childhood of getting involved in the community that I worked in. I always say like that was a foundation of my leadership, was building those skills when I wasn't in a leadership role, but I was really part of a community and it was nurturing my leadership skills to help me as I pivoted into my career to be a great leader. When I think about my professional leadership and kind of those key opportunities, is I remember, when I did my internship with the Boeing company, I remember being in their leadership development center and getting exposure to succession planning for the first time. And I think, as an HR person, you learn a lot about performance management. You learn a lot about compensation. I think succession planning is actually some of the most strategic work that you can do to not just think about how are you building and growing the talent for the future, but how are you being intentional about your assessment and your progress and leveraging data and insights to
Mm.
drive how you're going to progress talent within your organization. And I remember we were doing all these different metrics and analytics on a team that had never touched it before. And I was so excited And I remember coming up with the methodology and proposing it back to the leadership team of, hey, I think this is how we should analyze, all this metrics and data around succession to help us kind of build out, some of the models.
Hmm.
And I remember I was sitting on my couch on a Saturday and working on this as an intern. And I was so excited about it. I'm like, I'm a little intern sitting here on my couch. I'm going to bring this great idea. And I was doing all this research, and I remember coming in on a Monday and presenting it out to my internship manager and the team, and they're like, "This is amazing, Jenna. We're gonna do it. Go train us on how to do this." And I was like so proud, right, that I could bring value to this team, and really it was just me brainstorming and
Yeah.
solving problems and researching on a weekend and coming into my internship feeling proud that hey, I can make an impact in this
Hmm.
10-week internship, and being able to train some of my colleagues who are experienced seasoned professionals who I deeply respected on something.
Hmm.
While it seemed so small, it was my first time feeling like I don't need a title. I don't need a role. I don't need a compensation to feel like I can make an impact and lead people. But any moment that I have to learn something new, to try something, to bring new ideas, to develop others to be successful in something, that's true leadership to me.
Hmm. And how do you then do that? So, how, in your current role, how are you doing that with your teams to really bring that sense of encouraging ideation, creativity, leadership at every level through the business?
Yeah, I think about the last 2 years and the amount of creativity and new ideas and new programs that we've been able to launch has really been tremendous. And I think part is creating the environment where any idea not put on the table is an idea lost. Inviting ideas and perspectives. And while that seems so, of course you do that. I actually think a lot of leaders fail at that. I think
Hmm.
leaders want to bring their ideas and they don't take the time to hear what are all the ideas in the room that are going to make you better, and making sure that you're amplifying the voices that are quieter. I think one thing that I feel really proud of is that I know myself. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I can be vulnerable. And I'm not afraid to be vulnerable with my team. I'm not afraid to say, hey, I made a mistake or I just don't know, but let's figure it out together. And so it's not always about the strategy, the program. I think it all starts at what you say and how you act and how you engage with people to create ideas.
Hmm.
And at AlertMedia, when I think about the last 2 years, the way in which we've been able to build leadership development programs to invest in each of our employees at every major stage of their career, from launching emerging leaders programs to leadership development programs, those didn't exist. And we didn't buy anything. We took all the ideas and experiences and perspectives across our leadership team, including our executives, to say, what do great leaders look like here at AlertMedia? And how do we really build out a curriculum internally with the knowledge and experiences of the leaders and the people team members and L&D leaders in our organization, bring that all together to bring something great? And how do you amplify the voices and experiences? I think about how many times I sat in leadership trainings throughout my career, and a lot of it was very academic,
Hmm.
or it was, this is how you lead. And I just never bought into that. For me, it's about who is the individual, what is their authentic leadership style, and how do you nurture those skills through really intentional coaching to not change them, but actually to bring out for what's within them.
Hmm.
And what I've loved about a lot of ours is it's a lot of practical scenario based learning. It's taking the experiences and the challenges and the difficult conversations that our leaders have had in the workplace and using that to learn from them. How do you engage in that difficult conversation through thoughtful frameworks that help you really think about how do you lay out a really radically candid, meaningful conversation that leaves that person feeling heard,
Hmm.
valued, but also set up for success because they may not have heard what they wanted to hear, but they heard what they needed to hear. And they now know that you're a leader that cares about them and wants to
Hmm.
support them.
Yeah.
And we really think about those practical applications, those experiences as we do a lot of our training from within.
Hmm. Yeah. Awesome. So, you you seem very self-aware. You seem like you understand your strengths, your development areas. You've got that sense of trust and openness and vulnerability. How would you describe then your leadership style? What am I going to get if I'm in a room with you as a leader?
You're going to get a lot of energy. I will tell you is I am a very enthusiastic, open leader. I always say, what you see is what you get. I am a very transparent leader. And for me, it's about being on my authentic self and really deeply connecting with people. Um, I don't know if you've ever taken this, but I took Insights Discovery when I got here, and we use Insights Discovery a lot within AlertMedia, and I love
Yeah.
it because it's really taught me a lot about not just who I am, but how does my natural leadership and communication style need to maybe adjust based on who I'm talking to. Like I could not be more sunshine yellow. When I walk in a room,
I was going to
I
guess.
he's having the sunshine glaring into my window.
Yep.
But I get so excited when I run into someone just to ask them how their day is going. I love building deep connections. I love understanding what makes someone feel like fulfilled and energized to come to work every day. Because for me, those are the moments where you can celebrate, right? The people around you. Um, sorry, I'm going to pause a second. I'm going to go backwards. Um, when I think about my leadership style, it's really about building really deep trusted connections and not just from a professional lens, but really on a personal note. I really want to know who people are.
Mm.
And I'm a very open book. I bring my whole self to work. I am a working mother. I am a woman whose husband is a management consultant. So he's gone several days a week. And so I have to learn what balance looks like to care for my family, but also to thrive as an executive.
Mm.
And part of that is realizing that life happens outside of work. Like this whole idea of like work and life integration and blending is just the reality of it's hard to disconnect from any of that. And for me, when I think about my leadership is I want to know what people are going home to at the end of the day. And I want to know what
Mm.
they're bringing into the workplace at the beginning of the day because that's real. That's human. And I also think like that genuine care for people is also why people feel safe at work. It's also
Mm.
why they want to bring their all. It's why they want to contribute their best when they're at work where we spend a lot of our time. And I also would share with you is I'm okay sharing my own vulnerabilities, knowing that no one's perfect.
Mm.
And it's actually about being really vulnerable and open in the times where you're struggling just as much as the times where you're thriving and celebrating, because it creates a psychological safety in the workplace where people feel like they can make mistakes and they can try things and they can experiment and that swing and a miss isn't a failure, but it's actually an
Mm. Of course.
opportunity to learn and grow
Yeah.
and do something new and hopefully make an even better
Mm.
impact in the place
Yeah.
that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a key word that you mentioned there, which is one that I firmly believe in, you talked about a work life blend rather than a work life balance. And I
Mm.
think maybe pre COVID, we thought probably more in terms of it being a balance. But for me, that's two opposing forces and finding the balance between two opposing forces. A blend is where we've got so much that is going on in both of those lives that are coinciding with each other, that are sitting along comfortably, hopefully, with each other, that it makes it feel as if it is something that we can then manage better, something that we can then deal with better, where we kind of start to accept that there is that blend between the two rather than an opposing force between the two. So Alert Media seems like they've kind of got that right if you're been voted the best place to work in Austin. So how did you do that? How did you go about creating environment, culture, meaningful work, the trust that you spoke about earlier, and that blend between the two lives that people have to get that high accolade?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first is it starts with your mission and values. And while many organizations can say that, I've never believed it more than I do here.
Mm.
Right? The idea that our mission is we help companies keep their people safe and to make sure that they know all the threats around the world that are impacting them and that at any given moment you can show genuine care for the safety and well-being of people, right? If that's the foundation of your mission, then naturally in our environment, that shows up every day, right? That safety and well-being may not be a threat or a risk in the external world, but it's also the spaces that you're creating inside where people feel safe and they feel comfortable and they feel like they can bring their best. And so I would say it really is uh, I think mission is a really important piece, but it's also about how you show up. Our values aren't just words that sit up on our walls. Our values are something we talk about as we make decisions and
Mm,
as we think about assessing for who we invite into our organization and how we think about their success and how we grow and develop them in our organization, how we celebrate
mm,
people in this organization. And
mm,
so I would say those two pieces I think are the foundation, and they're things that have been the foundation since the founding of our business, 12 years ago.
mm,
And when I think about why we've become the best place to work in Austin, it's a variety of different things, right? It's about all the different kind of programs and benefits that you create to make sure that you're, to your point around the blend, that you're not just caring for the employee, but you're really caring for the holistic human and
mm,
thinking about their well-being and the well-being of them and their families and their safety. I think the second piece is there's so many different programs that we've created here and just the way in which we work that enables people to feel like they can achieve anything. And they can.
mm,
When I came in and I saw just what a great promote from within culture this organization has. I mean, in 2024 alone, 30% of our workforce received a developmental move. And
wow.
a lot of organizations, I think, create these weird tensions where it's hard to progress or hard to move in organizations because they see it as a detriment, or they see it as like, oh, but if you move, I'm then held back as a manager because I need to go help someone else
Mm,
onboard and that impacts my business. You don't feel or hear that here. Like every single leader is so committed to helping their people grow. And growing doesn't mean that you're going to get promoted or you're going to another role.
mm,
Growth here means that if you have a passion or an interest or you have an idea, that it's possible to explore
mm,
that. I
mm,
think a lot about just even, the work we've been doing over the last couple of months around AI and the evolution of AI and the way in which we've really created a culture of experimentation and adoption and really saying is, hey, let's see what's possible. Let's empower the people who are passionate to go build and grow their skills. And let's think about how do we create an AI enabled culture versus seeing it as a directive or seeing it as a risk or a fear. Let's see it as just another skill or another tool in our toolkit to help us work better, to enable our
mm,
people to grow and develop and thrive, right? And I think that's obviously just a very near topic, but there's so many other examples of that I see in which our employees can really pursue new and different things that they're just passionate about, or they want to grow
mm,
and develop, or they want to make an
mm,
impact here.
mm,
And I don't think you have that in a lot of places. I think a lot of people face obstacles and barriers, and we just have such tremendous leaders who are so invested in their people. And as an HR leader, I feel really lucky to work alongside them.
mm. Amazing. Well, congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
You mentioned there around the mission of the organization around employee safety. Tragically, in Texas this weekend, just past, it was a moment in time where your service was put to the test. Your service, your product was out there in employers using that to track the safety of their teams after the floods in Texas. How did that work for you? How was the technology used for you this weekend?
Yeah, I am the primary administrator of AlertMedia for AlertMedia, and I feel very responsible, right, for the safety
Mm,
and well-being of my own workforce. And it was incredible just to see, we have a global intelligence team who is monitoring all the threats and risks around the world, which includes a meteorologist team, to really understand what those threats are and inform us. And it was just incredible to see the speed, the level of knowledge and information at my fingertips to really make sure that I was communicating to the right people at the right time. Within 30 seconds, I was able to alert every single employee who is near any of the risk areas for all the different flood warnings, or the evacuations, and being able to A, confirm they were safe, and B, if anyone was impacted, being able to quickly communicate with them to see how I could help. I'm really grateful we did not have any employees impacted.
Hmm.
But as I've walked around our offices today, we have so many employees who are having a really hard time naturally,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
As parents, as neighbors, as Texans, as community members, but also for many of them being connected to families who experience the darkest and deepest loss, as we saw so many children and family members lost in the really devastating floods this weekend. And so
Mm.
I think part of it is also about not just how you get information and how you keep people safe, but also when I think about the leadership dimension after those moments, it's checking in with each other, right? Making sure everybody's okay. Understanding how we can help our community. I feel really proud. Our organization is going to be donating to our Texas Search and Rescue
Hmm.
organization, who's out there, all the women and men who are out there really trying to help locate missing people, help get people to safety over these last couple of days, as well as obviously our Caravel community needs us now more than ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thinking of those affected, it's been a very difficult weekend for everybody, but great to hear that you are checking in and also then using the technology at your fingertips to
Yeah,
see it from a customer's perspective, which is awesome. So yeah,
yeah,
great to see. So let's pivot slightly to the times when it hasn't always gone as well. So the messy middle. There's great moments of learning from your career where you've grown and you've developed and you've taken opportunities to grow and learn from different pivots in your career. When has it not gone according to plan? When are some of those moments where actually it hasn't gone the way that you expected it to?
yeah. I think a couple of different pivots I've made throughout my career. I think my first pivot, especially going from the large corporation space to kind of the smaller startup tech world. In my mind, it was like I did all the training and the development and growth and had all those experiences, and I was ready, right, to make that pivot. But it was a fundamentally different world. It was a different experience, and not just because I was then the number one, the chief people officer in the company,
Mm.
but also because the resources, the support mechanisms, but also the brand of HR was different.
Mm.
And what people wanted from the function was different. And I would tell you, as I've done different pivots in my career, I always say, well, what made me successful in the last one won't make me successful here, but it never had so much reality as it did when I transitioned to my first, startup tech
Mm.
environment. And
Hmm.
I think part of that is just because when you're surrounded by thousands and thousands of employees, you can wear single hats at any given time, right? When you're in these smaller, fast paced, growing businesses, the speed at which you pivot and the depth of knowledge you need about a variety of things
Hmm.
is beyond compare.
It's wild.
It's wild. It's wild, right? And I I think what I've really appreciated is that I've had incredible mentors and leaders throughout my career, both in the business and in HR, who I really leaned on to help me gain perspective, who helped me also understand what were the unique strengths that I built that helped prepare me for those experiences and opportunities and challenges that I faced. Doing one of the organizations that I had joined, I had joined at a time where we were trying to integrate a lot of acquisitions that were fundamentally different cultures. They were
Mm.
different businesses, different cultures, different benefits, different policies, different practices. And while I felt like I'd had all these little experiences that enabled me to do that, being in it and having to solve for it, but also making sure that you were surrounding yourself with the talent and the people you needed and the expertise you needed to actually do it
Mm.
successfully
Hmm.
had a different level of expectation
Oh yes.
um, than I had before. And what I loved about it is I've never learned more than I did in that year. I've never done more research and gone so deep into areas of HR that I thought I was a great expert on. I wasn't an expert. I was still at my basic level in some places. Like I think about benefits, right? The depth of knowledge you need to have on benefits when you're in a
Oh
small tech company
yeah.
versus you're in a large corporation you're in a different
It's
world.
humbling.
And it's humbling. It is. And the complexity and also the strategy. And what I can tell you today is like when I got to AlertMedia and I'm looking at these, I'm like, everyone always said to me, they're like, your first CPO job in like the tech startup world, you're gonna always feel like you failed. But your second one is your moment. And I was like, no, like failure has its own definition. And well, I would say is like, I think I really succeeded. I learned and grew. I made a huge impact in my first organization. When I think about the depth of knowledge and the growth that I had, but also the learnings that I took with me to do it completely different when I got to AlertMedia. I would not be the HR leader I am here at AlertMedia if I wouldn't have had the challenges, but also the reality checks that I had along the way.
So, what was the biggest lesson learned?
Mm. I think the biggest lesson learned is I think the biggest lesson learned is that you need to wake up every day and learn. And I know that that sounds so simple and so silly, but if every day you look for something else to learn, some other way to deepen your knowledge, someone else to talk to who has an area of expertise or a strength different than you, then you will be better and better every day. And not just better for yourself, but better for the teams in which you lead, for the organizations in which you work in. I think for me, that lifelong learning has been really critical. And using those moments of struggle and challenge and failure as my biggest learning moments that actually should be humbling to your earlier point, but also those moments that have helped me grow into who I want to be as a leader and maybe not who I was in the moment where I struggled.
Great answer. So, one of the things that many of our leaders that are watching now will be learning as we speak is the future of work and those two letters that we cannot escape, AI. So,
Yes.
you mentioned it earlier on that AlertMedia were doing a lot to kind of integrate and have strategic policies around that and to really start to build that strategy from the top down and I guess the bottom up as well. How are you seeing it having a positive impact on your work and your leadership within AlertMedia?
Yeah, I mean, even when I think about our people function, I have never felt like I had more tools in my toolkit to work differently and be more effective and strategic.
Mm, mm,
I think people are seeing AI as this risk factor or as this threat or to their jobs. And what I want everyone to do is I want them to flip that on their head because when I think about where I'm going to be able to spend my time, where I am spending my time, and where I want to contribute to organizations. AI is taking away a lot of those dimensions that were taking me so much more time before, right? Thinking about
mm,
automation, thinking about um, even how do we get employees information faster? And
mm,
so one of my team members, what I really loved is I said to her, I go, what if we had an AI bot that would just answer every question for our workforce? I mean, we have this awesome intranet where we've built all this knowledge, but no one seems to go to it. They always go to the human. But
mm,
I'm just going to slow them down because I'm in 10 hours of meetings. And
mm.
so she took that as a challenge and she built our first AI bot. Her name is Charlie in partnership with our IT team. And what I love about Charlie is connected to all of our internal knowledge that our team has been building for years and being able to get all of our employees information at their fingertips when they need it without having to wait for a human. And
Perfect.
and what I love about that is it's now enabling our operations team to really work on the human elements of the work we do,
Mm,
right? What are those impactful, rich conversations that AI is never going to solve? What are those challenging problems where you need to bring a bunch of brains in the room and really think through and build a strategy around? It's creating that space for those really organic, meaningful conversations where you can create the new and different. And so I know that's not exactly of here's how you use AI, but what I care more about is more the mindsets we're creating around it and the cultures we're creating around it to think about how do we work differently? Where are the moments where we need to be leaning into the human interaction versus leading with how's AI going to solve it for me? AI is going to solve a
absolutely.
lot of things for you, but you need to make sure it's solving for the right things for you.
Yeah. So unpacking that, probably the top three things that you did in there, which a lot of companies aren't really doing as effectively in some of the conversations that I'm having, is firstly understanding the why behind it. So the why should be very much it's the people focused element of it rather than the tech element of it, because people generally don't understand the tech, they
Yeah.
understand the people. The second one was engaging the hearts and minds of people. So to understand how it's going to have a positive impact on the rich parts of the conversations that they can have elsewhere, and seeing that there is better parts of their roles that they can be doing in order to use AI and to think with AI, but to not worry about the fear factor of it coming and taking people's jobs. And the third is anthropomorphizing it. Did you know that you did that?
I didn't, but that's awesome.
Giving it a name. So anthropomorphizing, calling her Charlie is giving it a personality, giving it some kind of human element to it, so it again doesn't feel as if it is a black box of technology that people don't understand. And I think
Totally.
there's so many ways that leaders are trying to incorporate AI that doesn't utilize those key three things that either knowingly or not knowingly you did, that really help to integrate it across the team and see it as a positive impact on the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, and creating the learning. One of the key priorities for us right now is our learning and development team is building out the learning pathways and really thinking about the learning journey for to meet every employee where they're at in that journey. To your point, is some people are like, I don't even know where to start, right? So
Mm,
how do we create our starter kit, right? What is the way to get started as you think about learning about what AI is, how to utilize it? What are those simple kind of basic learnings that get you kickstarted into your AI
mm,
journey?
mm,
Where's the basic foundation that you need to build as you're really practicing and starting to like learn it? And then getting to the doing, right? Being in that intermediate of like doing and maybe building a little bit to your really advanced, right? You're building, you're transforming, you're creating the new and different. And hopefully you're paying it forward and
mm,
sharing your knowledge and skills and capabilities and mentoring everybody else in those earlier stages.
mm,
And so for us right now, it's really think about how are we building our learning pathways to set our employees up for success, but also to meet them where they are,
mm.
knowing that everyone's in a different stage, and that's okay. But it's about starting, right? Starting the learning, kind of taking away some of the barriers to entry for people who feel just like it's really daunting.
Yeah.
But also to your first point is giving them a why. Why does this help me? And I think what I've loved is I'm talking to some of our employees who are utilizing AI, especially those who are thinking about how AI is enabling our own customers through our own technology.
Mm,
It's really about what are those simple wins of things that you spent a lot of your time on that now you can repurpose that time to something even more impactful
mm,
than you were doing before.
mm. So, thinking then through your either your leadership development programs or the things that you're seeing in emerging leaders that are coming through the organization as you're growing, what are some of the future skills that you believe the leaders of tomorrow are going to need to really perfect their craft of being a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's maybe three things. I think with the continued fast paced evolution of technology, I think it's going to be more important now than ever before that leaders are really leaning into these deep trusted relationships. To
Mm,
achieve a lot of the things that we've talked about today is if you don't meet people where they're at, if you don't get to know them, if you don't learn their why and what their own individual purpose is, then none of this is possible. They don't trust you. They don't
mm,
they don't understand the why behind it. And you're just another person telling them what to do.
mm,
And so I think the biggest piece is lead with purpose. And that purpose should be build deep trusted relationships. And while simple, I think a lot of us lost touch of that a little bit through our kind of COVID and post-COVID era. And I think it's going to
mhm,
still be a critical piece, especially as we think about evolution of technology.
mm,
I think the second piece that's really the second characteristic of great leadership is going to be role modeling some of these technological advanced skills
mm,
and showing that you're doing it too, right? If I'm not using AI, if I'm not utilizing kind of new ways of working, then how can I expect others to? And I think a lot of times it's really easy to say, here's the strategy, go. But if you yourself are not demonstrating those skills and the experiences and challenges that your employees are going to face, then you also aren't you're not walking the walk. And
Mm.
so my biggest piece is role model it, whether it's technology, whether it's values, whether it's behaviors. Um, I know it's simple, but I think it's the piece that's really going to remove some of the barriers for people because they're going to see that you're alongside them and you're not just directing them.
Mm.
I think the third, key skill that is going to be really critical in leadership, especially as we move forward, is this idea that our ooh, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Um,
We can wait for the sirens to go past.
I know, right? They can go. Hold on, let me think for a second. All right. So we said deep trust relationships, technology.
Yeah, walk the walk.
Um,
And then
uh,
if you just want to go from and the third bit, and we'll just cut from and the third piece.
sure. All right. I'm ready. All right. And the third leadership quality that I think actually goes hand in hand with the other two is authenticity. I think a lot of leaders feel like they need to become a certain type of leader to be successful, when really they just need to lead with authenticity and with clarity and being genuine in your statements and leading with curiosity, right? Asking the right questions, making sure that people understand who you are, why you're here, and how you're going to show up every day, right? I think it kind of brings it all together. I think that's maybe not a third, but really just a wrapper on the other
Hmm.
two. But I really do believe that it's actually the softer skills of leadership that got lost over the years, and I think it's the softer side of leadership that's going to help pave the way as we go into very much an AI forward technology era.
Absolutely, it's the technical skills. It's the very technical skills that will be taken over by AI. They are the ones that will be taken for granted almost. That you needed to know those skills in the past, but now they are done by AI. And so it is absolutely for me also the human element of it. That element of trust and engagement and building relationships, and then being able to get people to perform and to do the things that they need to be able to do in their roles through that human element of leadership. Completely agree. So, final question, and this is a question that we always end on, Jenna, in the podcast. This is around the East Peak versus the West Peak. So, the analogy here is that you're climbing the mountain. You think that you've reached the summit, but when you reach the summit, you realize that there is another peak just over the brow, a little bit further away, a little bit higher than the previous one was. You think you've made it, but then actually you realize that there's still another step left to go. Have you ever had a moment like that in your career, either from a learning perspective or from a career choice perspective, where you thought you'd reached your peak, but actually then you realized, and quite humbling realized, that there's a further way to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think to be honest with you, like the job right now is a really humbling place to be. When I think about um, the peaks of like what made me successful when I first got here is not what's going to make me successful for the next stage of our growth and scale. And this idea that every day I need to be challenging and pushing myself to really understand where is our business and organization going,
Mm.
and how am I investing in growing myself and challenging my thinking and surrounding myself with the really exceptional leaders that I work alongside to make sure that I'm not staying stagnant
Mm.
and that I'm really reaching for how do I become not just the CPO that AlertMedia needs from me today, but what is the CPO that I need to be at this next stage of growth as
Mm.
we continue to scale and become more global and grow?
Mm.
Because I think the workforce is going to need something different from future chief people officers.
Yes.
With AI, with the world around us, as we saw this past weekend, right?
Mm.
There is so many different um, external changes happening around us that impact businesses and it impacts people. And therefore, every day my role becomes more and more complex, which means it requires me, if I want to get to that next stage of my career, it's how do I become the best leader for AlertMedia, not just today, but where it needs to be 5 years from now. And
Mm.
I'm excited for that challenge and I'm inspired by that challenge and I'm ready for it.
And I was going to say, I think you are the person for that challenge as well. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on the How They Lead podcast, Jenna. Really appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations again on winning the best company to work for in Austin. I'm sure people will want to reach out and learn a bit more about how you did that as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. And please reach out. I always love to connect with all the listeners. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you.